All right. Well, hello, everyone. It looks like we are live. So glad that you guys are joining us. We are actually streaming tonight on Facebook and YouTube. So I know we've got people watching both places. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And again, sorry that we had to cancel last week, but there was nothing we could do about it. It was completely weather related. And yeah, so there we are. So joining me today is Elaine, and she works with Kitchen Table Consultants, who's actually, we had Ted on our podcast, episode 4. And then I think the very next episode was Ben Beichler, who is actually, one of you guys' case studies. And he was walking me through their 13-week rolling cash flow analysis, which I was just like, whoa, mind blown on that. Yeah, where they kind of got in a little bit of hot water there, 6 months into the business, and they had to kind of dig themselves out. So, that we actually talked Saturday. So, very cool. But I was in a session with Elaine presented on this very topic a couple months ago, and then I got in touch with Ted and said, we need to have this for you all and share this. So, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So you've got some slides and stuff. If you want to kind of start working through those, give kind of people a little bit of overview of what we're going to learn tonight.
Yep, I sure do. First, if I may ask you, what is it like to be famous, Michael?
What is it like to be what?
What's it like to be famous?
I don't know. I'll let you know when I get there.
Okay, we'll answer that later. Awesome. So just a little bit about me. Yes, I work for a consulting firm called the Kitchen Table Consultants. I was a farmer for about 15 years and learned a lot in the hardest ways. I wish I had some of these costing tools when I was farming. I definitely spent some time fretting and pacing around my farm, wondering if I could afford to go to a larger scale on certain crops, and I think there are tools out there, but a lot of them tend to serve the commodity crop growers, which is fine, right? But there's a group that's lacking the tool. And so I was really excited to be involved in this development years ago when KTC started the project, and it was funded mostly by PDA, the Pennsylvania Department of Ag. Rebecca Frimmer was really the big player in developing these tools. And she brought me in to blow holes in it, basically say what's wrong with you, find the issues. So I know them very well. I'm not the creator, but we'll dive into that a little bit. And I do want to talk a little bit more about what KTC is. But my farming career was diversified produce. I sold mostly direct to consumer, a little bit wholesale, lots of different moving parts to my business, fairly small, total revenue of 200,000. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's actually the size of a lot of people on the, that's a very general size. Talk to me about the acreage you were doing.
Acreage? We had about 15 acres in certified organic status, and any given year, only about 8 of that was in active production. Okay. So some might have been to pastured poultry, and some might have been just cover crop, just waiting for the next rotation, which I think is a really tricky thing for farmers also to figure out. It's probably a whole nother day of conversation and how to manage land use, because you want to just put as much, especially when you're a vegetable grower, right? You just want to make sure all your real estate is providing as many dollars per square foot as possible, and there's a balance to be had right there, with fertility and soil health, etc. So, any given year, about half of it was really intensive production. And I was trained in biointensive agriculture. So it's like a blend of, I don't know if you've heard of John Jevons, blend of French intensive and biodynamic. Yeah. It's interesting stuff. And then you get to a certain scale and it stops working kind of.
Yeah.
And your closed system dreams and mission become very, very expensive.
Yes.
And you start considering how would I maybe make this profitable? And do I have to forfeit my mission? So that's also something I love talking to farmers about, and just that big picture stuff. How do we assign a number to what your heart is telling you to do. It's really hard.
Yeah, that actually is something that comes up so often with folks. And, it comes down to like the use of plastic in agriculture. Like, should we be using greenhouse plastic or should we be using ground cloth? And like, I get that, but I also get the amount of fuel that it takes to bring a truck from California. So it's like, what's the trade-off there? That's the good question. Yeah, I mean, you look at like a roll of plastics, either 2,400 or 4,000 feet long, and that can grow. Well, if it's 4,000 feet long, you're going to grow 3 across. So that's going to grow 12,000 heads of lettuce. And yeah, I mean, you can do the math. You can do the math and figure out how many heads fit on a tractor trailer coming from the west, and 6 miles to the gallon, all that good stuff. Probably 5 when you add in the reefer unit. But yeah, it's definitely something, and something I've struggled with, because chicken fertilizer is cheap. It's $300 a ton, and supposedly is the same nutrition value as the $1,200 a ton product that comes from Fertrell, which is better, supposedly better quality, because there's the crab meal and the azomite and all those micronutrients.
Right.
So yeah, it's a great topic, which would be, I think we'll be debating it until the end of time.
Next. Yeah. And I'm learning really quickly that you're probably someone I don't actually want to debate with, because I'll just be like, oh, okay. Here, Michael, have a whiskey.
Yes, I actually do have a very low tolerance for alcohol, so that is a good way to get me, just yes.
Okay, so then I now know how I would win a debate. Perfect.
All right. If folks do have questions, we will absolutely take them. I'll leave it up to Elaine to kind of do, like, if she wants to take them during, or we want to wait till after. So if you do, and the thing is, we'll probably actually cover a lot of the questions as we get further through. So what I suggest folks do, Elaine, is they just write them down, and then we kind of just try to go over them at the end.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm good with however it rolls. I mean, I'm so used to presenting in a person with a group of people, and frankly miss it so much because of that engagement. That like, I see you looking puzzled. Like, tell me what you're thinking. Yeah. So I'll just leave it to you, Michael. If you feel like a question is really relevant in the moment, let's do it.
Okay.
But if we could hold them, it probably is best for the group.
Yeah, and let us know where you guys are all coming from tonight. I know we have a global crowd, and I know we had 1,000 plus signed up for this, and I know a number of them will be watching the replay, because 7 o'clock on Eastern time is only 4 o'clock on the Pacific. So I'm sure a lot of farmers are still out in the fields.
Still out there cranking. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, let's get into this. Elaine, do you want me to just share the screen, or?
Sure.
All right. So there we go.
Okay, so product costing, we'll talk more about that in a second, what we're here to actually discuss. I do want to just make fun of KTC for a moment. Consultants. We have these slides that we put with every presentation, and it's always been my dream to just completely make fun of them. So now I feel like now is my opportunity, because there's no other KTC member here to stop me. So we're a collective of entrepreneurs. This basically means, like, I work with a pile of geniuses. I'm a farmer who, I'm intelligent and awesome at troubleshooting and what have you. But I will tell you, the people I work with are next level, and I always feel like I am reining them in. They're like that calculus teacher in college that has a hard time remembering that the rest of us need it in plain English. Mm-hmm. So I spend a lot of time like, guys, awesome. How about we dial this back so that the people we're talking to can understand what we're saying? And they're like, oh, right. Okay. But they are, they've been business owners in many different aspects. A lot of them business owners in the food and farming realm. They understand what it's like to lose. So that means either, businesses that have gone bankrupt or getting fired, or the pain of not making payroll. Mm-hmm. So we have a ton of empathy. But yeah, they're all crazy smart, and I spend a lot of time trying to make sure they're on the same page with the rest of us. What we do, We annoy the crap out of our clients is what we do. We push everybody to like really clean up their accounting systems, to think hard about their mission and how does that align with the rest of their team and the projects and what are their real goals? What does success look like for them? We ask so many hard questions of them. And I think in the end, they love us, but for sure in the process, I think a lot of them are at their desks just like, wow, this has been the most annoying experience.
But it also, Elaine, can be the most helpful experience, because I've talked again to multiple of your clients, and one reached out to me and said, actually, I have like 4 hours of work I do a day now. I'm looking for something else to do.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because they had figured out how to streamline their farm and to make it work for them. So, I mean, the work that we're talking about, the work that you guys are doing in the finances is some of the most important work that farmers will ever do.
It is. Growth is painful in any direction, right? Whether you're trying to grow as a business owner or you're trying to finance your business for increased revenue. It's always a little painful. It's development. And thank you for saying that. We really love all of our clients, honestly. We have so much heart in this, and it's just really important to us that they succeed. So we spend a lot of time reiterating that as we're giving them difficult tasks and asking hard questions. But yeah, it's I've been through this process. KTC was my consultant as a farmer. I had financial pain that was increased labor cost, and I hired them, and we went through a process that I will never forget in terms of trying to develop as a business owner and not just a farmer, and the eye-opening experience that it was, and understanding like how you can really use numbers to help you make decisions in your business that was such a gift. That experience made me a proper business owner. Without it, you aren't. Without it, you're just a laborer.
Yeah. It's there's a big difference between being a farmer and being a business owner.
Yes. Yeah. I did find in the end that I really enjoyed being a farmer more than all of the other administrative parts of it. I think that's a lot of us get into farming because we love to sweat and be filthy and look back in the row and see where we weeded or see where we planted, and that like real tangible self-worth that we find in what we've achieved. It's different when you've reconciled your books. A little different.
Yes.
Yeah. This slide, I can't really make fun of this slide. These are our tenets, and it is absolutely who we are. My favorite is probably there's no BS. We don't sugarcoat anything. If we think that you have a plan, as a client that's not going to work, we'll tell you, and we'll show you how and why we think that. And we also, we'll point out flaws in your business. So if you are failing as, a business owner in terms of managing your staff or keeping track of your financials, we'll make that clear that we think that we want to help. But yeah, let's keep it real for sure. Okay. So the reason for the costing models, it's like I said before, it's such a black box. Your entrepreneur gut can definitely lead you in a decent direction, but without some real data, you don't know for sure. And so if you're thinking about adding other crops, so to diversify your production, or if you're just awesome at producing something and you want to, you have an opportunity to rent 20 more acres and you want to really look at what that looks like to produce just one crop on it. Justifying equipment purchase is a big one, right? Like, I feel like I weighed that a lot on my farm for a while. A transplanter was a great example. When I was ready to move to a new scale, like, am I going to splurge on the $2,500 transplanter? What can it do for me? How can it really make things better? So this tool can help with that kind of assessment. And agility in changing sales atmosphere. I mean, we're feeling that so hard right now in terms of, restaurant sales kind of going away, some wholesale going away, but direct to consumer getting like a massive bump with CSA and curbside on farm, stuff like that. The margin tool, the margin piece that's built into the tool is really helpful for these. And then the pricing scenarios, right? So it can look, the question of what to grow and how much to sell it for and what should my margin be can come at you in a lot of different directions. You could be, a restaurant owner that says, hey, I'm going to use X pounds of arugula for, this amount of the year. I want to buy it from you. And this is the price I can give you. So now you have data to enter into the sheet and then start to populate it and understand what's going on. So it's, and then there's, endless scenarios for that that can make this costing model beneficial. Okay, so just generally like increasing production. If you don't know what something costs you, so let's say, for example, you have a crop that you think is profitable just based on your assumptions, your gut, but it's actually just breaking even. And you, without costing it out, decide to expand it. So now you've put all kinds of more effort into a crop that's not increasing your profitability. It's not necessarily hurting you in the sense of it's not dragging you down and costing you money, but it's costing you a sense of like, now you're trying to grow and expand, but you've chosen a crop that's only break even.
Well, Elaine, I think you'd call that you're cutting into your opportunity. You're killing your opportunity.
Well, right. It's exactly right. So I don't know how to assign a real dollar value to that, but that is, it's lifestyle, it's energy, it's your pipeline of customers, all of those things that now get depleted because you've made a poor choice. Okay, so just quickly to cover the price versus cost. So your cost is what do you have to spend in order to produce something, and the price is what you're charging someone, what they're paying you to have it. And I just want to point out that these tools, sorry about that. These tools are related to the direct costs. So by direct, I mean like cost of goods sold. So we're going to use labor and consider that a direct cost. And then it's other inputs like the seed or the chicks that you buy, the feed for the chicks, the fertilizer for the beds. Those things that you basically need to buy in order to sell the thing. So we're going to set margin goals in the model that remember that we need money left for these other things like non-direct labor, administrative and marketing stuff, anything overhead, anything operational. So general farm supply, like usually farms, depending on what type of farm you are, what industry, whether you're livestock or produce or grains, you have a feel for what your overhead is beyond COGS. And this is where like historical financials come in really handy. It's one of the things like we work a lot with farmers. We always encourage them to have a good feel for what are your historicals. If you don't, if you're a startup, then obviously we'll model that with you. Okay, so just to talk quickly about gross profit versus gross margin. Gross profit, you've got income, revenue. What are you selling stuff for, the money that's coming in? Then the cost of goods. So like I mentioned, if we're talking about crops, it's going to be like seeds, fertilizer, really direct things that go along with the plant. And if you take the revenue minus those COGS, you have gross profit. So it's a dollar amount. The gross margin is then the gross profit number, the dollar amount, divided by the dollar amount of revenue, the actual sales, to get that percentage. And that percentage, we benchmark that. It's, you can Google whatever, wholesale, retail for crops versus poultry. You can get a lot of data on that. What we found is that it seems like for wholesale, you want a minimum of 20. And that's the 20% means that's left over from your revenue to spend on the rest of the things. So.
And Shelly's asking, is that the same for meat and eggs as it is for produce?
It's different. It's really different. I feel like this particular slide is probably geared more towards crops, like actual produce, vegetable crops. But if you're able to capture some of these questions, Michael, I could probably dig up some better answers for, she wants benchmarks.
Okay. Yeah.
Those types of things. Yeah.
All right. I'm writing it down.
But it is, that said, it is a personal farm enterprise thing. So depending on your scale and how you farm, and also how your chart of accounts is set up. Some people like to call their irrigation supplies for crops as direct cost because they're not reusing them. It's like they think it's a one-time, they need it, they have to use it. I would probably call it more of an operational cost and overhead. So that has some bearing on what your percentage looks like as well. But, generally, I think we can track down some data on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if it's drip irrigation, then you're pulling it out and throwing it off at the end of the thing.
Yeah.
I think you could put that in there. I mean, that's pennies though, for like 100-foot bed of melons. What are the rolls? 8,500 feet, and they're about $140 a roll. So I have no idea what that calculation is.
Me neither.
Yeah, that'd be 140 divided by 8,500. That's 1.6 pennies times 100 feet. That's $1.61. I guess that's enough. You might want to capture it if you're selling wholesale at pretty slim margins.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to consider is, a lot of us, I don't know about you, Michael, but if I had the opportunity to buy a ton of something at a cheaper price, I would do that. And it usually would last me more than one season. So, so I'm definitely the personality that's throwing a lot more in operational costs and trying to have a higher margin.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I think the beauty of that too is it allows you to see the per crop a lot easier. You're putting less in that crop cogs.
Yeah, sure. When you keep it slim in terms of your direct costs, I think you do get a better picture of the per crop. That's really a good point.
It allows you to. Whoops! I got feedback. I'm good. I just was trying to answer a comment on Facebook, and we're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the last point to reiterate here is the direct labor for these models. The direct labor is included in COGS, and that is sometimes difficult to do in a whole farm chart of accounts if you're depending on how it's set up. If I go into it more, we'll be here for days. So for this model, direct labor for the crop care is in the model. Okay, sales channels. So just to talk about wholesale margin versus the retail margin, the assumption is that if you're selling wholesale, you have a lot less hustling to do. So it should be a little cheaper on the administrative, sales, operational end of things. So your margin, your gross margin could afford to be smaller. Mm-hmm. Because you should have less expense and overhead. If you've got wholesale and retail, there's just the option to blend it and create your own. You'll see this model. It's not perfect. And that's kind of why I love it. When we first approached this, everyone wanted it to be exactly right for everyone. And I thought to myself, that is never going to be possible. It has to be inherently flawed. And we have to encourage people to just dive in, make some gut assumptions, and then keep doing it, keep using it. You're not like, okay, well, that's done. You have to plug in numbers, see what it spits out at you, and then go back to the beginning, challenge all your assumptions, and keep notes on them and say, like, well, how can I dial this in a little better? How can I really get to the bottom of this? Where did I maybe, just Hail Mary it and put in a weird assumption? Mm-hmm. Okay, so just a quick example. It doesn't take much to make you not hit your goal. So Mary's selling potatoes. She's got a retail price, wholesale price, and her cost. So if we look at her retail wholesale here at cost of 40 cents a pound, she's hitting her margin of 20%. Great. If her cost goes up 10 cents a pound for whatever reason, if it's labor or some other direct input, now she's not doing it. She's not hitting a good, healthy margin at wholesale. So she either needs to raise her wholesale price or she needs to figure out how to drop her cost back down. Okay. I feel like we might have covered this already. It's important to not just make assumptions. You need some data. And I think that if you feel strongly about a particular crop, here's your opportunity to test it out. Okay. So now.
This is where it gets real fun.
What's that?
This is where it gets real fun when we actually get to the numbers.
Yes, this is where we get to see things. Okay.
And folks, if you haven't already downloaded it, I'm going to drop the link into the chat again. You can just go and right to the kitchen table and download the two different sheets, Excel sheets.
Yeah, so we're doing crops and chicken for examples today. Michael, give me a feel for what you think about the size of this.
It's a bit small. I can't see it. I'm going to try to, I'm actually going to get rid of us and just go full screen there.
Love it. Yep.
Maybe one bigger. Yeah, actually, I'll ask folks in the comments. Guys, in the comments, can you see this okay? Obviously, if you're on mobile, you probably won't be able to see it ever. But if you're on desktop, I can actually see it pretty good now.
Sorry for your luck if you're on mobile.
Yeah, no, I think we're good now. Yeah, the size seems pretty good.
All right, cool. So before, I'm not going to bounce around tabs because I think that'll make us nauseous, but I want to just talk about the tabs at the bottom really quickly before I dive in here on the sample. So what you'll find in the landing page, you can download the whole workbook, and it's going to have your crop cost blank template. And I'm sitting on the sample carrots tab. Mm-hmm. Then there's a sample for baby greens. And then there's the transplant cost, which is a blank template. And then a sample for transplants. So what I mostly want to cover is the sample carrots. I will touch a little bit on the transplants tab, just because if you are growing your own transplants, it might be cool to see cost-wise how it stacks up to what it would be if you purchased them. Mm-hmm.
Why don't you make it one or two bigger? I'm getting some folks in the comments that are asking for it just a little bit bigger.
Okay. It's like I have a really big screen that I work on. So it's like Reader's Digest large version. Okay. All right. So some basic rules. If it's a peach colored cell, we intend for you to do some inputting. If it's gray, it's doing a calculation for you, or it's pulling word or data from another cell. So don't copy over those. Now, that's tough. We don't lock cells. It's tricky. We work in Google Drive and in Excel, and so they just don't talk nicely to each other a lot of the time. So anyway, nothing's locked. What I would recommend is downloading the whole workbook and making a copy for yourself, just keeping the original as itself. And if you break an equation, you can reference the original and fix it for yourself.
That's smart.
It's a great way to learn too. I mean, all of us have, had our pathway in Excel. It's like, so much I still don't know, but it's been amazing to, you screw it up. The more times you screw it up, the more you understand and learn. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So make your own copy, screw it up all you want. All right, so some key points that I'll probably touch on ad nauseum is don't consternate. Like, I want you to whip through this first. You guys are either thinking hard about farming, or you're a little bit in it, or you've been in it for years. you probably have an entrepreneur gut, which is going to make you want to make everything perfect. And it's not ever going to be. So you have to force yourself to move quickly through this the first time. I want you to really focus on that and be sure that you're diligent about it, because you're never done with this. You'll come back, you'll do it again, you'll try different versions. So not perfection, all right? So yeah, pretty simple. You start out, what crop do we want to assess? Well, we're doing carrots. How are we going to measure them? Pounds. You can put anything in here. Maybe it's cases. It's really about how you want to assess the rest of the costs around this crop. If you want to think about it in terms of your carrots being pulled in pounds or cases, and how you want to price it, right?
Yeah.
So,
and you can easily do bunches too. Sure,
bunches. Yep, exactly. So you can scale this. It's very scalable, right? That's one of the reasons I love this template. It's beautifully simple. But it doesn't take into consideration those operational costs. So that's why our margin is important. That's why you can't have a zero. This is not a break-even model. All right. Did you have a question, Michael?
Nope, that was good. So I'm just thinking you're going to capture all your operational costs, which are also considered overhead, if I'm not mistaken, in another sheet.
Yeah, nope. You are, for crops, we are assuming that you've got some historicals on your farm.
Okay.
You have a way to model it so that you understand generally what you want to have left to pay your overhead and to pay yourself. And that's why I feel like I'm just keep saying this isn't perfect.
Yeah, but that's all fitting in that 20%.
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is where you decide, what do I want left?
Yeah. Do I want 25? Do I need 30%? Yeah.
So we're capturing it in the sense of like, yes, there must be leftover, and it's going to be for those other things we have to pay for. But it's a bit of a guess, and it's based on data of your historical financials if you have them.
Yeah.
And it's a goal, for me. I know the things, like I know that I tend to put a lot more in my operational costs in terms of the accounting than I do in my direct costs. And so I don't think I would personally ever be very comfortable with just saying that my gross margin goal was 20% for a crop. Yeah. I would have my bets. And, there is personality in this model. It has to be in here. Like a lot of people are going to approach this with a very conservative, like low yield assumption, low price assumption. And that's where you want to take notes, right? So note your assumptions. Is it best case, worst case, average?
Yeah.
And I haven't done that in this sheet because I'm going to talk us through it, but it's important. And you can copy the tab, do it again, and run the doomsday version of it.
Yeah.
See the comparison. Or you could bake in sensitivity.
So on our farm, we actually had a 20% gross profit margin.
Oh, okay. Wow. Good for you.
Yeah.
Those numbers. I want to see that. I want to see that P&L.
Yeah. I can send you that P&L. It was, we were a pretty streamlined farm, everything going out the door retail through 90% retail. So farmers market.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, that does help. What did that leave you after debt service?
So we rented all our land. So that's why we didn't have a massive debt service.
Wow.
Yeah, we had 2 tractors on payments at one time, and we actually got customer financing on one of them. So we actually brought the percentage rate for the loan pretty low on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the only way. Like this new property that we're attempting to work through, that's gonna have a very high debt service. It's an expensive piece of property.
Yes, right. So something really important to consider, and having no idea, who I'm actually speaking to right now. If I can just quickly say, there is this net profit that we want, and Michael's was 20%, which is amazing. That's an amazing achievement to have a 20% net profit, and it speaks to his talent as a farmer and probably as a business manager and financial manager. But what has to also come out of that is what you need to pay on the principals of your loans. Those things aren't included on a profit and loss. And so it can take you down to zero in a hurry if you have a huge debt.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. We're not talking about that today. What time are we supposed to be done with this? Like 10:30. Okay.
Yeah, whenever we can go as long as you need.
Moving on. All right. So we got carats, we got pounds. We're saying that the bed length in linear feet is 300, and that we're putting in 3 rows per bed. I feel like that's fairly reasonable for a larger scale farm. I think some people can get away with lots of intensive rows if they're at a smaller scale and they're not using a lot of mechanization. All right, so I feel like this is the part where we get a little optimistic. 900 pounds, basically saying 1 pound per foot per bed. So
that is optimistic, but we can go with that.
Yeah, I mean, let's try it out. Let's see what happens, right? We'll get to the end and then we'll know, because if it's like crazy profitable, we'll be like, oh, okay, probably need to fix that. Yeah. And this is going to be wholesale. So we're going to say $1 a pound. Now, here's where you would take notes of, you would say maybe not certified organic.
Yeah.
Or, whatever is lending to this, like offered this price. So something to help trigger your mind of like, why did I put in $1?
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been the bottom price that we would have sold. That would have been dirty out of the field. Right. Yeah. So and it also affects your labor assumptions, right? So there's a lot that's tied in here together, and we'll get more to that. So this gray cell is calculating the total yield times the price, and then you input your margin. Because we're selling wholesale, because we've decided this is a wholesale situation, we're going to put in that it's 20%. So we want 20% of our revenue left over to pay for the rest of our things. And that's what creates these budgeted expenses down here, right? So this is the budgeted gross profit after 1 bed is paid for, right? We're saying, okay, we want 20% left over. So the expenses we're allowed to have, our allowance is $720 per bed. All right, and this is just kind of sidebar over here. If you want to, it's a little gut check, right? If we're going to do 5 of these beds, this is what the revenue would be, the budget expenses, and then what's left for the rest. Mm-hmm. Okay, labor. I did a little thing over here I want to talk about in a second. I don't know that $12 is really the right number. Not anymore. Feels like poverty level, right? So 14, I think, is what we're going to have to use. Well, let's do 14. And actually, in the comments, if you want to let us know, if you are hiring people in your business, what are you paying them per hour? That would be great to know. Really good point. I would love to know that too. So, okay. So then we've got taxes and fringe at 15. To be honest, like my payroll taxes alone were probably close to 13.5%. So this isn't like much past that. Yeah. So I decided over here to do a little calculation, and I have this at 12. So I'm going to change that to 14. You can see the calculation is probably wicked small for everybody. It's basically, $14 an hour times 40 hours a week and 52 weeks a year. So, you're going to pay a person 2 weeks vacation, and this is a full-time gig. So that's less than $30,000 in wages a year. Still feels pretty slim. If we do a tax at 13%, let's change that to 13.5. Okay, and then if we just say that we're going to pay their health insurance also, $5,000 a year. Is pretty, that's what you would pay for someone probably in their late 20s, maybe. So the total employee cost is going to be this. This is actually what the fringe, the tax and fringe is dollar amount, and that percentage is the new percentage we would put in here instead of 15. So why don't let's do it, 31%.
Now, okay, so that the effective labor cost per hour are now 18.
Yeah. And that I think is huge. To
Oh, yeah.
actually calculating that. Yeah.
That is a big impact. And, you know, when folks get to actually play with this model, it'll be fun to see. I think it'd be cool if they took the sample carrots tab and did some of these adjustments that we're doing, just and then like scroll down to watch what happens to the the bottom calculations of this. It changes wildly as soon as you touch that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too, and we can obviously circle around on this, but if you were doing the work yourself, you need to be paying yourself for the work.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for that, not doing that.
Yep. I think that we did make a little bit of an assumption that the owner pay is past the profit and loss for this.
Well, but okay, so this, and I think maybe I argued with was it I forget, maybe it was Rebecca, one of your other consultants was taking the class with Julia, and there was an argument about if there's basically we're doing a product analysis, crop costing tool, even if it's the owner doing the work in there, you should count it, because the owner technically probably should not be ever doing this kind of work in a business.
Well, it's a really good point, right? What is the cost to replace you? If you're doing that and you shouldn't be, what's the cost to replace you? Yeah, fell into that trap. Sure, it's really, really good point. I agree with you.
Yeah, and again, that's why the beauty of this is there's all sorts of ways to think about and look at all this.
Yeah, yep. So many flaws. All right. Step 5, your direct costs. So I think we just spitball these seeds or transplants. So just a note, this is still per bed. So for your 300-foot bed at 3 rows, what does it cost you for the seeds, the amendments, bags or wax boxes or whatever for that particular unit? So it's about the 900 pounds that we're saying comes out of there. What are the direct costs for that? Not about the 5 beds that we plugged in here, right? It's important to remember that it's per bed. And then we have spot 3 to add your own direct costs. So this calculates for you, all right, your labor budget per bed and your labor budget in hours. So based on what these costs are and your expense budget above, now it's saying, all right, here's what's left for labor. And if we break that down based on 18 hours or $18 per hour, this is how many hours you get to use.
35 hours per, and that's a per bed again.
That feels really like a lot.
Yeah, that feels like you're not going to use all of that. I mean, and that's not tractor hours either. That's just hand labor, right?
No, it's tractor hours too.
Okay. Oh, okay, yes. Okay, yeah, because we're going to go into those next, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that these costs would probably be higher. We're talking about 900. Let's do that.
Well, so seeds is correct. Is I think $18 for a bed of seed for carrots. That's about right. That's what
that's kind of right.
If it's a 300-foot bed, let's put in $100 on soil amendments.
Okay.
Plastic bags for pack out. If it's 900 pounds, it's 40 cents a bag. Divide 900 pounds by let's say 25-pound bags. So
we are talking wholesale, though. Should we talk about this in terms of wax boxes?
Wow, gosh, wax boxes is going to kill you because that's $2 for every 40 pounds.
Yeah.
So let's do that. Yep. So 900 is going to give us, is it 25? That's going to give us 25. That's $50 in bags and boxes, actually.
Okay.
Which actually isn't that bad when you think about it.
Not that bad. That doesn't feel that bad.
But soil amendments, let's give ourselves a good soil amendment budget for that. So that, yeah, we're good there.
Okay. So what else do we need to put in there?
Yeah, let's actually in the comments, guys, if you have questions, if there's anything directly related to cost, just actually like supplies for that. I can't really think of anything. I mean, even if you, let's say we're using row cover is something you can actually technically use multiple times across multiple beds.
Yeah, if it's a thicker version, sure. Yep.
So I would put that in the overhead. I'm not going to necessarily put it in the cops.
Agreed. Yep.
Actually, Tara just said that, row cover, and I was like, I'm going to farm logo labels for the boxes. Yeah, if you needed labels for the boxes, let's throw $10 in labels for the boxes. So they're about 50 cents each. Yeah, so Seth was saying if you have a carrot digger, do you put that in an amortized value? Yeah. That's
fantastic. Okay. We're going to get to that. We're going to have a root washer scenario to look at the very end of this. But yeah. So equipment to streamline. Yep. We'll cover it. Very good. Very good point. Okay.
I think we're good. Let's keep moving.
All right, so it leaves us with a little less than 30 hours to work on one 300-foot bed for the entire duration of the life. And that includes the washing, packing, and all that stuff. So bed prep. Okay, let's talk about how we enter things here first. In number of passes per crop, you have to have at least one for anything to calculate down below here for it to total out. If it doesn't happen, if we're not thinning these carrots, we're going to make the assumption. So here's where we would put a note that we seeded well. Right? This is an optimistic version. There's no thinning. Cultivation. Weeds aren't too bad. We've got a Tillmore tractor. How about that? We've got a Tillmore with a basket weeder.
Well, is it the 4-wheel Tillmore's the 2-wheel Tillmore? Because that's a massively different amount in cost. Although it's not.
Well, so yeah. I mean, we're talking about making assumptions right here. I'm trying to imagine a farm that already has. They already have a tractor. We're not going to talk about like the cost of having that versus purchasing something new to make.
Well, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is it a $23,000 tractor or a $3,000 tractor?
No, I'm talking about the 4-wheel.
Okay, so the 23, actually 27 with the basket.
Yeah. Okay. Hand weeding. We're gonna do 2 passes at an hour, or we're going to use 2 people one time for an hour.
Hand weeding. That one's always, I always like to pad that because that one always gets us.
Okay, let's do it.
For one bed, I want to do 6 hours. That allows me to come through a second time and make sure no weeds are going to seed.
Okay. So that's how we would do that.
Yeah.
So this number of passes per crop is also an opportunity to put in number of people. So depending on how you're thinking of it, like, okay, yeah, I'm seeding this only one time, but I'm going to send 2 people out there to seed it. It's going to take them 20 minutes. So you could put a 2 here and 20 minutes here.
Yeah.
Right? Passes per crop and also people per pass. You can do a multiplier there. All right. What else do you want to change on here?
Irrigation seems correct. I wouldn't change anything there. Minutes per pass 15 because you can irrigate it 4 times and it's super quick. Fertilizing one side dress. Okay, you will throw some phosphorus, potassium on a little bit later. Carrots, you are going to have. Do you have spraying?
Sorry?
Do you have spraying?
We could add that down here, or we could assume it's in here and write a note.
Let's just keep it under pest control because that's usually the exact same. So, yeah, you're going to have 2 pass. Actually, let's change that to 4 passes because you're going to spray copper 4 times. 2 weeks apart. And then the trick is to always throw about 10 pounds to the acre of nitrogen in at the same time and keep those tops healthy.
Nice.
I don't know if you can tell. I used to really geek out over carrots.
You ever go by Michael? Or, I'm sorry, by Mike?
It's either or. People call me whatever. So yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that in there quick.
Harvesting the wash shed. Okay, so 2 hours for that bed. Yeah, that makes sense. I think you might have to give yourself 3 hours though.
Yeah. Do we have a cutter bar? Are we running in there to just lift them and then pull them out and top them and off they go? They're wholesale, right? Is that what we're doing?
I think if you are hand lifting with a cutter bar, I still think you need about 3 hours, but I could be wrong.
Fit.
I know it with our carrot harvester machine, it was 120 pounds a minute.
Nice.
But that was, we got that as a steal. We sold the machine for 3 times what we paid for it. So
that's amazing. That's
So I don't even like to throw that into calculations because it doesn't make sense for most folks.
Starting to not like you as much. Really liked you 10 minutes ago.
I think we're good. I think we've got everything. We got the irrigation, we got the hand weeding, the cultivation, the bed prep. Yeah, no, I think we've captured everything.
Yeah. And we're saying there is some washing and packing here. It's just 2 hours. Again, we're going wholesale. We're running it. So part of the assumption here is that down below in this spreadsheet that I'll show you, we've purchased a root washer. So so that's why this can be a 2-hour project for 900 pounds. Do you think that's fair?
I'm just trying to remember. We would do 1,000 pounds in 3 hours. So
okay.
We need a little bit more time.
We need more time. Now, I'm going to ask you this also. You said that the $1 a pound price was dirty.
Yep.
So I'm happy to use this 3 hours, but then we need to go up and up that price.
Yeah, to $1.15 because it cost us 8.7 cents to wash a pound of carrots.
Okay.
So I mean, we can go up and we can just push it to like $1.10 a pound, and I think that will be fine.
All right, and I made that 3 hours.
Yeah, and Pondy, if you are doing retail, you can change the numbers however you want. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this, right? It's you start here at the top and say, okay, what we have an understanding of what our yield is probably, or we have a goal for our yield. So what are we going to sell it for? What we think the market can bear? Who are we selling it to? Right? Make a guess. And then again, guess at what you think you want left over. What do you want that margin to be? And then that scenario is kind of what dictates how you make the assumptions down below. So labor can look really different with less equipment, direct to consumer. Packaging looks different, direct to consumer. So you start to get the understanding of like this tool is, it's moldable, right? You get to decide. Okay, so again, we've plugged in, well, okay, this is saying we've got about 18 hours in estimated for our whole bed of 900 pounds.
And we're making 23 passes.
Well, it's a bit muddied because we might have been adding in people. Might be one pass, multiple people.
But it also just makes you think about how many times you cross that field.
Yeah, right. So it's technically still number of passes if you're sending 3 people out, 1 pass, 3 passes, right? Yeah. Yep. Okay, 5 beds is what we said above, so we went ahead and put that in again. This is the total pounds and income. Now,
I'm going to shoot a hole in this.
Yeah, please.
I guess we're saying that 900 pounds is of number 1 carrots.
Yeah, so if you want to assume some loss, I would do that up in yield, and I would make a note about why. I would probably make it a calculation that you can tweak too. So I would say we want to do, we want to put 900 in here. I want to say, what do you want to do? 90% are?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Okay. So 0.9. And we can say, you could make this
Yeah.
a calculated cell. And then you would,
Yeah.
I mean, for myself, I would change it so that I know it's calculating.
Yeah.
And I would make these an input color. Right.
Perfect.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes I assumed crazy high loss because I am that personality. Like this is not, I would not have put in a very optimistic forecast for yields, or my labor would probably be completely jacked because I would assume that I have, you know,
yeah,
the folks on the farm who I had to hire in a hurry and didn't vet very well and inexperienced and lovely but slow, you know.
Yeah, and they pull the carrots instead of the weeds because the carrots are easier to pull.
Oh, yeah, right. So
yeah.
Makes me sad. Okay. So, yeah, so it changes things a little bit down here. Changes our poundage and our income, because certainly our hours of labor aren't different, just because our yield suffered a little bit.
Yeah.
But it still is shaking out here that we've got a gross profit off of this.
Yep.
After our direct costs and after our labor. And so it's leaving us with a margin of 43%, which is more than double what we said our goal was. And our cost per pound is at 63 cents.
Yeah, and we're at 35% of our labor budget. Is that what that's showing?
Yeah, right, exactly. So we're wait, no, it's 65%. Yeah.
Oh, and 35% of direct costs.
Yeah, and that I think this one calculates off of the others because the labor budget is driven off of all these assumptions right above in the step. Yeah.
So basically what this is showing us is we can spend a heck of a lot more time on this crop and still make money.
And still make money, right?
Yeah.
Or we could drop our price and still make money. So
if we at the end of the winter had 3 tons of carrots left in the cooler and we're like, do we just throw these or do we drop the price drastically? We're like, oh, we can get them we can sell them for 70 cents and still make money.
Yeah. Yep.
Boom.
Yeah. Right. It's a decision-making tool. I love it for that. I love that it can help you see your opportunities. Yeah.
Now, another thing, which maybe we're going to get to this, is storage. We're not calculating storage. And that was actually something because we would hold carrots for 3 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And like the person said, all right, I'll take, 4 tons of carrots from you over the year. I want to know when I need to buy them from you. And then we would come back in with, okay, well, if you buy them in this date, this is your price. If you buy them, in April, which is the end of our storage season, we know we have higher, well, again, you have to account for this somewhere else. You have higher cull rate and you have higher cost because of the cooler for the 6 months.
Yep.
So anyway, you could obviously do that somewhere else, but it's just something to think about as you're thinking through this.
Yep. You have to consider those other costs. And cull is definitely a big thing to consider. And I think that's not necessarily something that farmers have a really good dollar value assigned to.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is if you are culling, can you sell those culls and for what price? So again, there's all these little variations, and this is not meant to be perfect. This is meant to be a guide to move you most of the way there.
Yep. But right, there's always more to consider, and I was a little surprised after we increased the labor dollar per hour amount, Michael, to see that this is still, because this was this is really looking solid in terms of profitability before we made all those adjustments.
That's why we did 2 acres of carrots.
Yeah. There are people that would argue that stable crop like carrot is not a profitable crop. I found it to be.
Yeah, no, it was good money. Good money.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this opportunity assessment where we're going to purchase a root washer.
Yeah. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because I do want to get to the chicken costing tool. Yeah. But it's just, this is like a small segment of this to consider. If I was going to buy something, how long is it going to be before, it actually is profitable for me to have it?
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of a root washer, it appears that even if we plugged almost the entire amount in, it's still the second year going to be a good venture, as long as you're planning to still farm carrots. We're going to say that the root washer itself is a 2-year expense. It's going to be a little over $2,000 per year. And it's going to do 3 crops for us. It's going to do beets and potatoes and carrots. And carrots are going to be about 25% of what it does. So we're going to assign 25% of that to this to see what it does to gross profit and gross margin, and then cost per unit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. If you were buying this solely for carrots, then you're not going to break it out into 25%. But I don't know farmers that do that unless they are very, unless they're growing very few crops.
Yeah.
And specifically are driven towards a larger scale of a particular thing. But I just like this piece because it helps them assess the opportunity a little bit more to say, okay, well, if I really look at what this piece of equipment is going to contribute to this first year, I'm going to have to pay that amount on it out of pocket. I'm still going to come out looking decent on this crop.
Mm-hmm.
And you take it away. If you take this opportunity out, you have to go up and change the labor, because washing 900 pounds of carrots or 800, however many pounds without this is going to put your labor costs through the roof.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you could, now the other thing is what this means is next year, let's say you depreciated this, you spent the entire thing this year on that, that value, you've got even more margin in.
I lost you for a second there, Michael.
Oh, yeah. So what I was saying is if you decided to take the full amount of that and assign it for just the 1 year, and you still could. What if we change that to 50%, which would mean we expensed it in just the 1 year?
Right. So if we say it's like 1,050.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're still within our margin.
It feels more like break even, right?
Yeah.
It feels more like, okay, so first year it's a wash, but now we've got this piece of equipment that, has some life to it.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to require overhead to some degree, right? Repair, maintenance,
yeah, I'm trying to remember how many tons we ran through ours. Well, it was about, 30 to 40 tons a year.
Wow. Yeah.
So when you get that, we ran that thing 5-6 years. We replaced the wheels once and the boards once. And the chain we had to, adjust. It was one of the old grindstone ones from New York, and that thing is just so solid.
Yeah. Well, it's a solid argument as long as you can nail it. So where someone like me, who's a bit of a skeptic in terms of, profitable crops, will go, I feel like this is really optimistic. What do I need to challenge about my assumptions? So this is where, I feel like the tool is useful in a lot of ways. You go, okay, I breezed through it. I didn't spend a lot of time concentrating. And now I can go, okay, well, I feel like cultivating is probably going to take more than 20 minutes to pass, because I want to factor in there that, Joseph is the one who's going to have to be hooking up the basket weeder, and it's kind of slow, and whatever. Just go through, challenge what assumptions you've made. It's easiest if you've had some notes in here.
Yeah.
So that's worth the time, right? Don't consternate, but definitely be diligent. Take time.
Yeah. Pondy Mountain Produce is saying, going to play with this for hours.
I'll be sure to tell Rebecca Frimmer. She'll be delighted. She will be delighted. Good. Okay, are we ready to move to the chicken?
Yeah, let's move the chickens, guys. Let's do that. This was fabulous, though. This is always one of those things. And then the transplant tab too. Folks can just plug the numbers into that.
Yeah.
That's relatively simple. And yeah,
It is. The hardest part about the transplant tab is there's the spot in there where we basically try to get you to assume some value to the square footage that your flats are taking up for their life in there. It's just, you just have to slow down for a moment, I think, at that piece and think about what other profitability you could be making off of that square footage if those weren't sitting.
Yes.
Or the other part is like, what does it cost you in total to run? And let's break it down.
Yeah. Christian is asking delivery costs. That would go into marketing, and that typically goes in overhead because you're delivering multiple things in that delivery, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's so up for debate. This is where, I always come out with a really annoying answer, Michael, of whatever you decide to do, be consistent. And this is how Ted Lebow has trained me, right? Like I will coach you and train you and talk to you through how you assign certain things in your chart of accounts, whether it's operational cost or it's direct cost. I can tell you all kinds of decision-making factors in that. Did you send it with your thing you sold? Was it wrapped around the thing you sold? Fertilizer isn't. Although it's very arguable that fertilizer is an annual expense that goes away. You have to do it. You can really be seen as a direct cost. I don't care. I don't care where you put it. Just be really consistent about where you're putting it. Year on year, every month, whatever. Be really
Don't have your favorite crops, which get special treatment on the sheet.
Yeah, right. No pet crops.
All right. So this one is all about chickens.
It's all about chickens. Yep. So I did grow some broilers on my farm. I would never have cost this out. I had an intern one year who was so into it. And I was like, yeah, why don't you run some numbers on the chickens? And it was fascinating to be part of the building this, because I was just like, holy crap, the amount of moving parts. So you see down the bottom, hopefully, that there's the calculator for poultry raising versus the harvest and processing. And then Rebecca has a summary tab built in. The summary tab is a lot after you've gone through both these other tabs. So I'm probably going to move kind of quickly, but we might get to the summary tab and like backtrack a little bit to make some sense of it.
All right.
Okay. So just some basics. Here's some instructions. That really obnoxious yellow is telling you how to use this workbook. Suggested records. It is really helpful if you can round up some of this stuff off of a P&L. The bedding, utilities, transportation, chicks purchased is going to help a lot with the input cells, and you'll see this here in a second. Labor rates at Schedule F if you've been operating already and you have that kind of thing. Okay. Oh, that's super tiny. How do you feel about that size?
Yeah, that's good.
Bigger? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so same deal. Peach cells are input, gray cells are calculating for you. The blue is just like visually trying to help you find some headings and point of place. So the cost of raising, we have to have separate from harvest and processing because we needed to hit a point with calculation to understand. Okay, so just to keep these, just to get these to the size, what does that cost us? So, you can go ballpark right here, try to just say, what do you want to get out of this? What do you want your revenue to be? I'm gonna raise X number of birds and I'm gonna, charge this amount per bird. What is that gonna be? Make a guess. Margin goal, 30% I feel like is a pretty reasonable goal that was based on some research we did. So you can mess with that, but I wouldn't go lower. And then this calculates for you. So it's basically the, 6,500 times 30%. So this is gross profit, what's left. All right.
We got chicks, we got mortality, we got cost of chick.
Yep. And then these calculate based on what you put in mortality. So you're only losing 7 birds for your 250. That doesn't seem, I'd be losing a lot more birds than that probably.
Yeah, probably like 5%.
Yeah. But
I've seen 6, yeah.
A lot of farmers who are doing this kind of thing know this stuff. Livestock farmers tend to know what their mortality rate is. And this is stage 1, right? This is when they're teeny tiny and you're just trying to get them to the point where you're going to put them out to pasture, et cetera. How many weeks? Maybe this is 10, maybe this is 8, depends on what kind of birds you're getting, right? Then we've got these two, break it down, right? It should equal this, obviously. The feed purchased in pounds, what was the total dollar amount? We put it this way, these inputs, instead of like have you input this amount, because typically your feed bill is coming and saying like, well, you bought X number of pounds and here's your total.
Yeah.
But we need this number for your data later on in the summary.
Yeah. Now that's going to include your feed delivery cost, because that's a direct cost to that feed being delivered, correct?
Yeah, I absolutely could. I was definitely a feed picker-upper. So if you're having it delivered, yes, it needs to be in there. And I think you would just bake it in, and that cost per pound should have the delivery in it. Yeah. And I think that stage 2 feed is probably a different price. Like my experience, stage 1 feed was a little higher per pound.
Yeah.
For this exercise, we've just got, the same in here. So you have to customize that, obviously. All right. So now we're going to do the feed talking here.
These are broiler chickens, right?
Yes. Sorry, not layers.
No, but that means, okay. And so, so we are running like a Freedom Ranger here, because that's why the 12 weeks, correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Because I was like 12 weeks, 8 weeks is usually most for the other kind, but okay.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's, honestly, depends on the farmer a little bit too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, I ran mine at 8 to 9 usually.
Because you were looking for a bigger bird then.
You mean at 12 weeks I was looking for a bigger bird?
Well, if you're going 9 weeks with if you're going 9 weeks with the Cornish cross, you're probably getting what, a 7-pound bird?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So number of feeds per day, weight per feed is pretty straightforward. And then these things start to calculate for you. I feel like this workbook can feel a little overwhelming because there's so much in it. So first run through, best practice is to just read the instructions, address what's a peach cell, and keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
Mortality rate stage 2. So when you're in this, so say we've got the 12-week bird here. We've got a 6-week stage 1 and a 6-week stage 2. So in that second 6 weeks, how many birds are you losing?
Yeah, 2%.
And then it's going to recalculate your remaining birds. And this matters for batch size, because now it's like we're boiling it down to like how many birds do you have left to actually make money off of.
Mm-hmm.
Bedding unit is this many bags, blah, blah, blah. Yep. No, yeah, right. This is pretty sure. Labor, very similar to crop costing. We're paying this person $15 an hour. Fringe is low. We're not doing any health insurance coverage here for this person. They're getting pretty straight wages, and then that's our taxes we're getting covered. So labor time per day, this is about what we're assuming, and then other labor time per week, just to capture, like, it's slush, right? Like, what else? Let's like put something in there to understand that we're doing other things with those birds beyond just like the absolute basics.
Yeah.
All right, and then some of the just random direct costs, like the light bulbs, these things that I would say are not overhead, but are a little bit like, like our cost for the wax boxes and the crop costing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing something here, right?
And, yeah. Do we depreciate the pens anywhere?
No, nope. I think that that could be an interesting tack on to the summary sheet, similar to how we would have treated the
Yeah.
brood. What did you pay for a pen?
When we built them, so I mean, like at least 200, 250 in materials by the time you get everything.
Yep.
At least 2 to 4 hours, probably 4 hours of labor at least to build them. And they lasted probably 3 to 4 years before you start really fixing them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That feels like a pretty minimal cost to me, Michael.
Yeah, that's not, because even if you're paying $15 an hour, so that's $60. That's 300. Let's say $350 a pen over three. Let's call it 3 years. So that's $100. Let's say $125 a year, and that will hold 90 birds. So for this batch size, we need 3.
Yeah. So maybe we puff up this number right here.
Yep, we could totally do that.
I don't know, like 7.
Yeah, 7.
How did that? I don't see how that changed much.
It didn't change that much.
Let's make it 10. Yeah. It's going to matter in the per batch when we start to scale this.
Yeah. So now because that's very interesting, because now it gives us a cost of raising each of $12.57.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Of just the raising. We haven't even talked about all this in processing yet.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. This is going to be fun.
Okay. It's getting real now. Okay. So now we're starting to pull off of the previous tab, right? So this is what, after all your mortality, stages 1 and 2, this is what we're saying we have left in a batch. 238. Now how many are we going to run this year? We're going to try 8. This is input, right? This is where you get to decide. Now, this feels like kind of hard to me, and maybe it wouldn't be hard for you, Michael, but saying like yield per product in pounds per batch. So, okay, we've got 238 birds. How many pounds of backs do I have? How many pounds of breast do I have?
Yeah.
Now, you know, we had a subject matter expert help us build this, so our examples are not completely out to lunch here. But as a farmer, I would be challenged by this. Yeah. So here's another spot where it's really helpful if you've got some historicals. So if you've kept track of your harvest in previous years, or if you've had a processor do it and you have an inventory of what came back, it could be awesome in making this a lot easier to tackle.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the question is, like, if you just do whole chicken, how many pounds do you get?
Right. Right. Yeah. So if you're not doing it, leave it blank.
Yeah.
And then obviously you put your prices per pound in here. And then this stuff calculates over here for per batch. And then per year is based on the fact that you put in, you're going to do 8 batches. Right? Yeah. So this number 8 is going to change all these guys if you adjust it.
Yeah.
Okay. So lots more calculating down here for you. The revenue.
Per batch.
Yeah. And per year. So more processing costs. All right. So depending whatever you're doing here, are you renting a mobile processor? Is there, someone you're paying to do the processing for you? ICE, whatever other, random costs. Try to think about all of it. Try to, make sure you're not missing some costs because it's going to affect the bottom line.
So if you are kill fee, if you're paying, so around here it's like $3 a piece to get them processed if you want to get them processed.
Okay.
So that would be 600, 690, like 740 or something like that for that per batch.
Let's just put in 800.
Yeah, that's what $800 per batch. And then you're gonna at least spend $60 on ice to keep them cold while you while you age them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You have to travel. If you're traveling to the processor, though, you're probably going to take 4 hours of labor.
Yeah. So I think the tasks down here are where we would put that in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So let's do that. Like we're paying this there's a little higher rate here. So it was 15 on the other tab, and now we're at 17 and a half for the harvest processing. It's a hard job on farm. If we want to talk about this, well, let's leave it for now. So we did assume this is
yeah, well, we're not costing the so basically on this we're saying that the cut and wrap is happening here. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean you gotta make your own assumptions. And I want to encourage everyone to don't be afraid to change the language in any of these in column A, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to keep all your notes over on the right-hand side. Just make this your own. You know what your operation is. And if it's like an operation, we've got costing models for pork. And I have a client right now who is buying in feeders and growing them on pasture, right? But he is going to do a farrow to finish at some point. So then we have a farrow to finish tool. So he's like, well, this is really helpful because I felt like, oh gosh, I'm handing you the farrow to finish and you're not actually doing that. And he's like, no, this is great because next year I want to launch that. So, you got to make the workbook your own in the best way you can. I don't want people to be afraid of changing it so that it's most relevant for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you feel about these wrangling tasks?
Yeah, 2 hours for.
I feel like that's ridiculous for 238 birds. That's like 24 hours. It depends on how good you are at it.
Yes, it does. Yes, if you got good. I think that 2 hours seems fine to me. By the time you get out to the field, wrangle them, bring them back.
Okay.
Even do some cleanup of the pens there.
Yeah.
Cutting on farm, 6 hours seems about right. Packing 4 hours. Yeah, that seems right. Maybe a little bit low on. No, that's about right on packing. I'm just running the numbers through when I was at Polyface, what it took us.
Okay, I didn't know you were there. That's amazing.
Yeah, I was there. I was just an intern summer 2012. Supervisor, you gotta have some supervisor hours there. Yeah, I mean that seems right to me.
Okay, great. Well, I definitely on my farm this would have looked a lot different. We would have put it 24 right there.
Oh wow.
I'm exaggerating, but the wrangling was not streamlined over here. Okay, so this cost of labor is then calculating off of our assumptions about what we're paying a person in their fringe above labels, other materials, and I just want to make sure that this is
calculating properly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then we get down to total processing costs.
Yep. And then the processing average. Right. So now we're going to mash this up, the raising and the harvest and process in the summary tab. Oh, goodness. Okay.
Yep. So now it's just pulling over the pieces for every single stage.
Yeah. And you have an opportunity here to enter weeks in cycle. This isn't pulling from that first sheet, but it could be. You could easily change that to just equal the other weeks in cycle that you entered in the poultry raising. Birds per batch based on your mortality, and then birds per year based on the fact that you said you want to do 8 batches. And now all of this is just telling you the data per batch, per year, per bird. And we're going to look at what your margin goal was, which is also pulling from that first tab where you said, I want to make $6,500 in revenue, and I want to have a margin of 30%. Well, we're close.
Yeah. That's within the margin of error.
Yeah. So this, I think so, right? So this tab or this particular model does have a section on this tab where you can start to put in a little bit of operational, what we've also called overhead here in this.
Yeah.
Tab. And it, you know, this is so ballpark, unless you really have incredibly detailed financials. Goodness.
Yeah. So in your opinion, where would the brooder go?
The brooder, like what you were talking about before, kind of similar to the movable pen.
Well, the brooder, where you have the chicks in a brooder usually for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then you go out to the field.
Yep.
That obviously is it's a longer term because you're gonna at least have that for like 15 years. So that's a long term depreciation.
Yeah, I wouldn't include it here.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know that there's much place for things like depreciation and those things that have a lifespan in these models. What we want these to do is help you understand if it's worth taking a crack at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is this something that, number one, can you achieve it? Can you achieve 8 batches of 238 birds a year? I think what it does is it lays out in front of you the reality of it a little better. To say, okay, well, I dreamt this all now into this workbook, but do I have the capacity for that? And are my labor assumptions for this correct? What does that mean for me as the owner?
Yeah.
What does it mean for my life? If I'm going to raise 8 batches of 238 birds, do I get to leave the farm at all for the year? So, I personally, I don't need these tools to be the end all for people in terms of knowing down to the penny, is it gonna make you a mint? I need it to help them decide, I think it's worth giving this a go. But to your point, really, really makes sense to understand what else is involved in this opportunity.
Yeah.
So pull back, do this, pull back, be like, oh, okay, if I'm at the scale of 8 batches of birds a year, I'm just going solid.
Yeah, and how much land do you now need? How much do you need a small 4-wheel drive tractor to move around bedding and all that good stuff?
So I think there are a lot of other questions to answer before you would get down to like, okay, well, my brooder's going to be shot in 15 years.
Yeah. There's all those, and then all those costs, the brooder, the barn, buildings, those are all going to go into overhead because there's a long-term depreciation.
Yeah, and you can't ignore them. You're absolutely right, and I love that. I love the way you think about it. It's just it's got to be a stage in the thinking, and this is the front end to just say like yes or no. Yes, let's think about it more. Let's talk about it more. Can we do it in all the other ways? Or no, I don't like this. We either need to change the price, change the scale, or not do it.
Yeah. And so those things have to go in that 30% because you were saying, the cost of the cogs is what can be wrapped around it. And you can't wrap your brooder around your chick. Actually, it does wrap around the chicken.
Technically, like a big warm hug. Yep.
All right, guys. So if you do have specific questions, feel free to drop those in the I know we are running late a bit here, so we'll just take a few, but we do want to thank you guys for sticking around. Again, I always enjoy this stuff. I geek out on this stuff, and it's always really helpful to, this is where you find out where your farm is making money or it's not.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's been such an amazing pleasure to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm trying to see if we get any questions coming here. We'll give it a few more seconds because we do have about like a 5 to 7 second lag.
Yeah, no sweat. I'm good. So what should we talk about? Should we talk about how you're entertaining yourself in isolation?
Yeah. So
what you doing? Playing Scrabble?
We don't necessarily. I mean, like we live in a little tiny town, so it's like, and we have Amazon Prime deliver a lot, and like my wife is part of. Well, she started. I'll tell you the biggest thing that changed for us is we got ClickList. Before then, every Sunday we went to church, we went to Costco, we went, we did our shopping, we came home. And obviously church closed and Costco pretty much like you had to be like 20 feet apart. So that stopped. So yeah, that was the biggest change for us. I mean, because I work from home, so it's not like I'm really going anywhere.
Yeah, same.
We do, we usually, I would take like 6 consulting trips over the summer, like once a month or once every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And we cut those out completely. So yeah, that was really the biggest changes for us. It's really interesting. The land I rent, the owner has been really, and he wants to make sure everyone does the social distancing and stuff. So it's been a little bit different because like I can use the tractor, but I can't use like the cab equipment, which is like the excavator, the bobcat, that kind of stuff. So I just had to coordinate a lot of like deliveries and stuff with him. So that's kind of been one of the other big changes. Is normally like I'd have a trucker coming, I'll just run down there and move the stuff. I've just had to coordinate with him. So
not out in the bobcat. That's rough.
Yeah. Thankfully, I'm not down there a lot using them. It's only like a couple of times for some of those equipment. Terry is asking, what about insurance costs? And that would definitely go in overhead.
Yeah, that's something that we refer to as a fixed cost. So when we budget for that, it is literally that. It is a budgeted line item. We know generally what that's going to cost us, and it's not going to fluctuate with our sales. So, for example, regardless of whether we make $500,000 in revenue or $50,000 in revenue, our insurance is probably going to be about the same because it's what we sign up for. We know what it's going to cost per year. A variable cost would be like if you pay merchant fees for credit card swipes on sales. The more you sell, the higher that's going to go. So that's like more of an operational cost. But for the sake of how we were talking about all of it, yeah, I refer to all of it as overhead. But there are, KTC, we have several categories of what we consider not a direct cost. And those are general, administrative, operational, fixed, and non-direct labor.
Non-direct labor is kind of like the delivering a truckload of product.
Sales, marketing, administrative duties like customer service. I think all farm stuff, you could even put, farmers market labor in non-direct. It depends. Yeah. Like I said, it's about how you want to look at your numbers as a business owner.
Yeah. And then operational would be?
It's like things like repair and maintenance. Like I said, the merchant fees that you would pay on sales, supply, like basic farm supplies. So like,
fixing the gate,
gloves, safety gear, things that last more than a year, but that are kind of disposable, not things you would depreciate, small equipment that you wouldn't put on your balance sheet as an asset.
Yeah.
Things that have a life. Usually if you're buying a piece of equipment that's less than, depending on the scale of your farm, less than $500, it's probably not going to have a real long life, and it's not something you would want to mess with in terms of an asset. Just expensive to write it off.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, folks. Well, I think we are going to wrap that up. Again, thank you so much, Elaine, for coming on. Really appreciate that. I know we gave people a ton of ideas. And again, yes, this will be available later. We will have, we usually leave the replay up for a week, and then it is going in our vault. And then again, I know a lot of you signed up, and we will give your information to KTC so they can follow up with you. And again, this is what they do on a daily basis. So if you're interested in someone to help when you walk through this, that's what Elaine does every day, right?
Yep, pretty much. I'll cry right there with you.
Yes. All right. Well, we will let you all go. Again, thank you so much for hanging with us. And again, thank you, Elaine, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.